So I really don't like to talk about mainstream topics because I feel like mainstream topics are forced into our psyche so that we can be distracted from the real issues that I do talk about most of the time. But Kanye West freaks out on Instagram saying he lost billions. Rapper Kanye West has had a very bad week after he went on an anti Semitic rant about the Jews. West's new advocacy campaign against Jewish people is being adopted by Nazis and Fox News host Tucker Carlson when he welcomed him on his show to explain himself. Okay, so Kanye is basically going on Instagram saying that he lost billions. Now, here's what I want to talk about. When it comes to politics and society, there's a game. There are teams, just like any other game. Football, soccer, hockey, lacrosse, you have teams. And you have coaches of those teams whose job is to provide you as a team with psychology, finesse, technique, mechanics in order for you to work as a group to accomplish a goal. And just seeing the Democratic versus Republican war and how Kanye is being used in that war, I think it's pretty sad because it's like, I think it's pretty, hold on one second. All right, I think it's pretty sad because it just shows that America is really not interested in doing anything to make this country better. You know, instead of worrying about important issues, uh, such as how can we recreate the middle class, how can we bring unions back, and things of that nature, how can we create opportunities and lift disenfranchised people from disenfranchisement. You understand? Instead of just dealing with real issues that we really need to be talking about, what the politicians want to do is distract us with these issues that force us to feel. See, if we're too busy feeling, we're not going to be thinking. Because one thing that the politicians have learned is if we can get the people to feel instead of thinking, also the news networks have figured this out too. Because like I said, the news networks do not get ratings anymore. You know, nobody wants to go see the local news reporter go to the zoo to go see Bobo the monkey. That's not cool anymore. That's not interesting, especially with the power of the internet. We can look up whatever we want to look up. So the news networks have figured out, okay, if we can create content that's going to make people, okay, if we can create polarizing content that's going to make people feel, make people angry, then we can get high ratings and we don't have to actually update the people about meaningful news. And they figured this out during the Obama era, but they perfected it during the Trump era. If you notice, the top shows on cable television are news networks. Politicians are basically a part of that cast. You can say that the news network is basically like a sitcom. It's like an entertainment show, and a cast of characters includes politicians because they're always on these shows. And it's just sad, man, that I'm not even going to speak about Kanye West personally. Like I said, I'm just going to talk about these artificial constructs that they expect us to fall for. And it's really like we're enslaved. And I'm just waiting for the day that Americans start to put pressure on their political establishment, the news networks, to stop dividing us. Stop using tribalism, division, being partisan. Stop using those as marketing and promotion techniques so that you can enrich yourself. And you notice what these politicians do. They hire these pollers, these professional pollsters who go out into the communities. They ask people questions. They put in hard work trying to figure out what the people feel. Then they report this back to the politician. Then the politician reads it. They give him the presentation. Okay, we interviewed 50 people in Kansas, 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats. This is how they feel about this issue. Now that politician is going to pretend he or she cares about that issue. They're going to go on one of these news networks, talk about it, raise their fist, and then they're going to look at the statistics and the analytics. They're going to see their donations rise, and they're going to say, okay, I'm going to stick with this issue. It's working. It's a game. You understand what I'm saying? Haven't you noticed that the politicians don't have their own mind? Their mind is basically like a news cycle. Remember when all the parents were upset about the fact that critical race theory was being taught in school? What happened to that? Everybody was up in arms. Everybody was going to PTA meetings. Parents were upset. Parents were threatening principals, beating up principals. Oh, what happened? That's an old headline. So don't make your mind the next headline. Your thoughts aren't headlines. Your thoughts are supposed to come from your soul. But you've been corrupted by politicians, and they've created a headline mentality in your mind. Free yourself. And another thing that I want to speak about, the situation that's going on in Venezuela, in Costa Rica. The American dream is over for Venezuelans stranded in Costa Rica. They trudged through knee-high mud, slept under torrential rain, and stepped over skeletons of those who didn't make it, like tens of thousands of Venezuelans suddenly stranded across Mexico and Central America. These two find themselves unexpectedly in Costa Rica, sick and penniless, selling sweets on a street corner, sleeping on the floor. We can't return and we can't advance, these two gentlemen said. For months, Venezuelans fleeing the economic disarray and authoritarian rule of President Nicolas Maduro were streaming into Colombia and up the roadless, swamp-filled Darien Gap, walking north with the understanding that the U.S. was offering them asylum. That ended suddenly on October 12th when the Biden administration expanded a Trump policy of sending back such refugees into Mexico. But the mainstream news is not talking about that because they don't want to associate Biden with Trump because that'll mess up the whole plan, right, of controlling our minds. The policy shift occurred 2 days after Suarez and Gonzalez, the two men in this story, reached Costa Rica, making them part of a growing wave of stranded Venezuelans. Panama announced this week it will close its borders to Venezuelans without visas traveling north to south, and Nicaraguan officials are demanding a $150 per person fee as a rite of passage for Venezuelans seeking to enter from Costa Rica. Guatemala says it has expelled 10,000 Venezuelans to Honduras this year. On Tuesday, the Venezuelan government began half-price repatriation flights from Mexico for its citizens. Across the region, Venezuelans are suddenly feeling temporary transit camps, sleeping on the street and begging. Their stories are harrowing. And yeah, man, it just goes to show you that the Venezuelans are being rejected by their own South American brethren. And yeah, I suggest you look deeper into the story. The crisis in Venezuela is kind of crazy. And these people traveled. They left their homes. They left everything they ever knew with the understanding that they would get asylum. But that was a lie. But the politicians know that this story isn't going to reach the likes of CNN and Fox because you're too worried about Kanye. Peace.